Franchise Secrets, Erik Von Horn.
If you're not a part of the Franchise Secrets Facebook group, what are you waiting for? It's franchisesecrets.com/Facebook. I cannot believe how valuable this group turned out to be. When someone asks a question, the feedback is honest, authentic, very helpful, and it's from multiple perspectives. If you're not sure that you're getting the most accurate information about franchising, then check out the largest, most helpful Facebook group in all of franchising. Whether you're a Z, a Zor, a buyer, or investor, join our free Facebook group at franchisesecrets.com/Facebook. Hey, welcome to the Franchise Secrets Podcast. Erik Van Horn here today with a solo episode. And this is going to be a pretty fun one. We are going to be talking about emerging brands. So emerging franchise brands. And this is going to be both for franchisors and franchisees. Now, I put a post out in the Facebook group a while ago, or a question, and said, what are the advantages and what are the disadvantages of emerging brands? And there was a lot of really good discussion. So I kind of took some notes on that discussion. I figured I would lay that out to everybody in a podcast because it is such a popular thing. Now, with emerging brands, there are a lot of advantages and a lot of disadvantages, or I should say possible advantages and possible disadvantages. So in this episode, I am just going to talk about the possible advantages. And so there are no hard and fast rules. The things that I say, it's not a guarantee. Like one of the advantages that I see in emerging brands is you typically have a larger territory. On the flip side, I've actually seen the opposite where brands have too small of territory and they realize they need to make it bigger because they were too greedy early on. So that is not a common thing, but that does happen. So anything that I say, there's always going to be, or most likely going to be, an exception somewhere. But this in general is what I see as many of the advantages of emerging brands. And when I say an emerging brand, some people say that's less than 100 territories. I was talking to one of the top lenders out there, and his definition, what he's kind of heard, is less than 50 franchises open. So there's going to be different definitions of an emerging brand, but let's just say a brand that is still figuring some things out, a brand that is either not making a lot of money or making a little bit of money off of royalties. So royalty sufficient and investing heavily into the infrastructure at the corporate office. So if they are not doing that, then let's call that brand an emerging brand. Sometimes it's just going to be a brand that doesn't have very many franchisees and they might be making a lot of money. So here we go. Advantages. Let's talk about territory, because that is something that I've seen in emerging brands, that early franchisees typically get a larger territory. And it's not a special thing that they get. It is just early on, the brands that are new need to offer larger areas because they need something to compete with established brands out there. And that's an easy one for them to compete with. Another thing that goes along with territory is sometimes they offer specials. Maybe you're the first 10 or 20 franchisees with a particular brand, and they might say, if you buy 2 territories, you get a 3rd free. Or if you buy 3 territories, you get a 4th free. So there are some promotions that I've seen out there, and it works well, and it causes people to have to take action to be able to take advantage of that particular perk. One of the advantages might be it's actually open in your market. I consult with some private clients of mine that are franchisors, and I was talking with one the other day, and I said, you have some of the best turf location available. And I got into it in a podcast a while ago that there are always markets that are really hot markets. Actually, it wasn't a podcast. It was a private webinar that I did for franchisors. And some of the hottest markets out there are Dallas, Austin, Raleigh, Charlotte, Virginia, that Northern Virginia market can be a hot market. Depends on the FDD there. And then markets like Nashville, Denver, typically Atlanta, typically really strong markets. So keep that in mind. If you are in one of those markets that I just described, you are probably going to be buying an emerging brand or buying an existing location of an established brand, because those are typically the markets that get sold out first. So if you live in one of those markets or you want to own in one of those markets, an advantage of an emerging brand is they actually have open territory for you. So that's important. So that's territory talk. Let's shift gears and talk about having a seat at the table. So this means, when I think a seat at the table, you are able to have influence. You're able to help that brand make decisions. You're going to have a direct impact on how that brand grows and how that system is established, because everything is just starting out. There's going to be vendors in that first group of vendors in that brand that probably will not be there in 2 or 3 years, because they realize that they have outgrown the vendors that they originally started with as a mom and pop that turned into a franchise. Or vendors aren't able to keep up with the growth. So vendors typically change, and you have an impact on that. That's also some of the disadvantages, but we'll save that for later. But if you are the type of person that wants to have impact in the brand, or you want to be involved with things like making those decisions and helping the systems become better systems and perfected systems, if that's interesting to you or exciting to you, then that might be an advantage of joining a brand that's emerging. Here's the other thing. You might just be joining the next hot thing. Now, most brands are not going to be the next hot thing in franchising. So let's just be really clear at that. Now, most brands think they are going to be the next hot thing in franchising, but most of them are not actually going to live up to that desire. I was talking with Caleb the other day, and I said, "Have you heard of BHAG?" And he's like, "No, what's that?" Well, it's big, hairy, audacious goals. And so most brands get into franchising because they want to scale nationwide, because they have a BHAG. They have this big, big goal that they want to achieve. They want to be the next hot thing. When I think of hot things, I think of Orange Theory Fitness. I think of Crumble Cookie. I think of Planet Fitness. I think about brands like that have done really well. Some of those brands are big names today. Some of them you may not have heard of, but all three of those have done really, really well. But you can't really buy them anywhere because they're pretty much sold out. So you might get lucky and be a part of the next hot thing. By the way, one of the ways to do that is to see where the founders of these brands go next. Founders of some of the creators, some of the original Orange Theory franchisees, area developers, and corporate came from Massage Envy, the Massage Envy world. And so they had success there, and they duplicated success and increased, I would say, success at Orange Theory. And so that's one of the things that I look at. Crumble came from a technology background. I believe one of the founders worked at Facebook or had some connection to the tech world and marketing world. And so they incorporated that into the brand. And I believe they had some good franchise mentors. So if you are looking at emerging brands and you do want them to become the next hot thing sooner than later, then you want to look at the management team pretty closely. One thing that I hear about from people is they want relationship with the founders. Now, founders, a lot of times early franchisees buy because of you. You are the reason that they buy. And as a result, they want relationship with you. And that can be advantageous both ways. If you're a founder that wants to work with your franchisees and help them be successful, that can be a win-win type relationship. But if you are a franchisee that you want relationship with the founders, buying an emerging brand can definitely make that happen, because Founders want their franchisees to be successful. No matter how much success that the founders had in the past, now they're in the franchise business, or maybe they've been in the franchise business before and now they're with a new brand and they really want you to be successful because they know more than anybody else, successful franchisees that are early on in a brand will be the foundation of how that brand grows. You can't have an on-fire brand that is just starts selling like hotcakes for any sustained period of time without having happy, successful franchisees. So if you want more FaceTime with the founding team and help them grow and help tweak things and whatnot, that's a big advantage. Here's another one. Maybe you have a break on the upfront fees. There's typically, just like all kinds of things, fees go up. Franchise fees go up. Territories get smaller, fees go up. That's typical in franchising. So you typically will be paying less upfront. Now, you might not get a special break on franchise fees being the number 3 versus number 5, but typically once that FDD goes for renewal, the fees will start going up. That's very typical on a brand. And again, because early brands, emerging brands without a great track record in franchising and without a great track record in the industry need to be able to compete at different levels with other franchises. And fees can be one of those ways that they compete. So if that's important to you, that could be an advantage. So here's a big one. This is a really, really big one. Systems and processes evolve as the brand grows, and you have a large say in that as a new franchisee. You're new, you're testing things out for that brand, whether you think they are, they think they are, you are testing things out because if things don't work, they're going to look for you to, you will be the voice that says, this isn't working, or you should be that voice. And that's how things improve. All franchise systems improve. They improve from year number 1 to year 2 to 3 to 5 to 10 to 20. Systems improve. Processes improve. If you want to be somebody that has a say in how that brand evolves, then it's an advantage getting in early on because you will have a lot of say. And there's some people that just don't want that. They're like, I want the system and I want it done for me. I want to have 200 people before me that have perfected the system. I don't care if I have any say in how it evolves or whatnot. Well, then you're probably not going to want to be in an emerging brand because that is one of the things that franchisees do help with. Here's the other thing. You might get more freedom to operate as a franchisor is really there to help you, again, become successful. But you have freedom to be able to do that because they might have experience in, let's call it the West California, Nevada, but they don't have experience in New York or Virginia or North Carolina or in the middle of the country. So they might not have a lot of experience there. So they're going to probably give you a little bit more freedom to operate your location so they can learn from you. You're not going to be able to do whatever you want, but you are going to have a bit more freedom, typically in an emerging brand, because they're learning. There's a lot of learning that happens in these emerging franchise systems. Negotiation. Let's talk about like what you can negotiate or possibly negotiate with the franchisor. Might get some lower fees. I've heard of brands offering lower fees. I'm not saying that is common or that could happen or should happen. I'm just saying I've heard of it before. Better territories or bigger territories, and you might be able to get first right of refusal on some territories or negotiate different things that you would not be able to negotiate once that brand has traction. So once it gets traction, the chances of negotiating some of these things like a first right of refusal go away. Now, as a consultant, I would hear a lot of candidates that would say, hey, I want first right of refusal. And I don't think anybody as a consultant that I worked with ever got first right of refusal. But I do know franchisees, as I've been on the franchisor side at different times, that have been able to negotiate first right of refusal. So that is something that may be an option for you. You might be able to negotiate more support. You might get some of that in writing. You might get some of that verbal. You might just get some promises like that where you want one of their corporate staff to come out, where they normally come out for a day or two to help you with your grand opening or, your first week in business, but ask them for a week. Ask them for 2 people for a week to come out. Ask for the founder to come out. You can do all kinds of things. And I'm not saying you're going to get it, but you're in a really good place to negotiate. And if you're negotiating on things that will help you win and them win, that's a good thing to negotiate. So those are some of the things that I've seen franchisees ask for in some of these early brands. And quite frankly, these franchisors are willing to do that anyway. They want to do that. So they're going to get out there and do some of these things anyway. They're going to be out there and help you and support you and ensure your success, not because they love you. There might be some of that, or because you are number 3 or 5 or 8. That's might be why, but the real reason why, they need you to be successful. They absolutely need you to be successful. I think that's one of the big advantages of an emerging brand that might have a franchisee or 2. And if you validate with that franchisee or 2 that said, man, they didn't say that they would do these things, but they came out and they did them. They came out and they were with me twice as long. They did this. They sent me extra marketing material. They did all these other things that they didn't need to do. That's a really good sign. So I would be looking to negotiate things like that, or just ask for things like that and get some extra help. So those are some of the things that I've seen negotiated with some of these emerging brands. So eventually that franchisor will probably have a franchise advisory council, or they'll have some type of, group of franchisees that represent other franchisees. So if you are that type of franchisee, that type of owner that wants to be involved with building things at the corporate level, helping corporate grow, even after the brand has started to get some traction and attract a lot of new franchisees, they might have a franchise advisory council, and you'll probably be asked to be on it if you're a good franchisee and you want to be able to help like that. So that's something that I've seen a lot. Here is again, I'll just kind of reiterate some of the things that I think people forget about with new brands. So you need to understand why they're going to be successful, you as a franchisee. So if these things are advantages to you, here's some things that you really need to look at. What is their management team like, and how do they plan to grow? Some of the things that I've had some franchisors ask me questions. What's the next hire for me as in my brand? Maybe they don't have any franchisees yet, or they just have a handful of franchisees yet, and the founder's been really doing a lot of the heavy lifting. What I would say to emerging brands that really want to have a long list of advantages and good advantages for their first handful of franchisees, or the group that needs a lot of help, is hire a franchise business coach, or have a franchisee that's been successful in your system be a franchise business coach to help others have a quick ramp up. So if you can help your franchisees through the founder or team members that have quick ramp ups, that becomes a huge, a really, really big, important item, is to have quick ramp ups as new owners. Because typically, if the new owner has a quick ramp up, they're going to open up in a second territory or expand faster, and that just accelerates growth. So if you are looking at an emerging brand and you're looking at a list of advantages, and you hear some of their early franchisees are now buying more territory, expanding, growing, that is a great sign that franchisor understands franchising and they understand their industry. So those are two things that I would absolutely I would see as an advantage in an emerging brand. If the founders or the team has franchise experience and industry experience, they don't need to all have ownership, but there needs to be some high-level leaders that have franchising experience and industry experience. So that's my quick takeaway on the advantages of emerging franchise brands. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Franchise Secrets Podcast. Whether you're watching or listening, please make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and to whatever channel you're listening on. If you want my help with anything from buying a franchise to franchising your business, please visit franchisesecrets.com.